Oh, hey, gang. Welcome back. This is the Swimmingly Show. Today, we are talking about one of the hardest truths in youth swimming.
Yes, and it's a big one. Most swimmers quit between the ages of 9 and
Mm.
12, and the single biggest drop offs show up right at or just after age 13. And this is a statistic that's actually shared by USA Swimming, too. Like they have a massive stat of what, 75% of swimmers stop swimming by the time they turn
That's
13.
right. Yeah, it's before anyone jumps to any conclusions, this is not about kids being weak or families being flaky. And we know that overall, it's natural for kids to try sports as they progress through childhood and drop off. But there is this pronounced issue in the sport of swimming that Hayes just described.
Yeah, and it's not because kids just all of a sudden stop liking swimming, and it's not because they aren't talented. And it's definitely not because they're lazy. It's actually because the experience in swimming, that experience when they jump into the next level of swimming, could be quite intimidating.
Indeed. So once you really understand why kids leave during these years, it becomes very clear what keeps them in. And so we want to focus on the positives today. And so let's go through it here.
Yeah, so this drop off is real and it peaks around age 13. That is where we see the biggest drop off. And across youth sports, this is well documented participation drop between ages 9 and 13. And swimming is definitely not unique here, but it's hit especially hard, I would say. In swimming, the biggest cliff comes almost always after the age 13.
Yeah.
So we'll dive into that more and talk about why.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I know if you were in the sport and you progressed up to at least that level and maybe beyond that level, you have anecdotes, you have friends that you saw that they did the sport and then right around 13, the girls on the team or some of your guy friends, they just started to lose interest for some reason, or there started to be this split between those kids that were in the senior group that were going to start going every day and these kids that wanted to go a couple of times a week, but then they kind of petered out and they quit. Um, that is usually when the sport starts asking kids to make this, what I just alluded to, this real decision, this all in exclusive mentality. Am I committing more time, more practices, more pressure, more expectation? Because it's like a coach telling you at that age, at that level, usually 13-ish. It's like, are you gonna take the honors class in school, or are you just gonna take the regular class? Are you gonna take the
Yeah.
AP class, or are you just gonna take the honors class? It's kind of the same pressure that's added to these kids. A lot of times these are the kids taking, those classes trying to achieve there, and now they're getting the pressure from sports, and it's like, are you gonna be serious about this and really come every weekday and Saturday morning? Or are you just going to do our bronze group, and do two practices a week? Because if that's the case, we have that group for you over here on the side. Yeah, it's immediate addition of pressure and expectations, and there should be a natural segue for those that want to opt into that, but it certainly puts those swimmers kind of in a corner and puts that pressure on them.
Yeah, and I mean, Charlie, that's a great point. I think that decision to move to the, AP class or whatever can be made anywhere between, 9 and 13. But they're not actually quitting at age 13. They're quitting because of everything that has happened before
Right.
it. They've committed to this AP class, there's harder schedule, these longer meets before that. And it's almost like this wear and tear just gets to
That's
them
right.
over time.
Yeah, they've emotionally made the decision by the time they get there because
Totally.
of what you just said. Either swimming's been building confidence and this enjoyment progression, or it's been building stress and fatigue, and it's kind of headed into this brick wall here.
Yeah, and when this happens, when the kid decides or the parents decide, that also happens. But when the kid quits around this age, the explanation that comes from the parents or the adults is often pretty much the same, right? We'll hear it all the time. They lost interest. Charlie, my son lost interest a while ago. they were not competitive enough. They didn't like those long meets and they wanted an easier sport.
Yeah.
Those are the things that are repeated by parents that see their kids
Needed more time
transition
for
away
his
from sport.
academics, needed more time for her
Yeah. Yeah.
academics. Yep. Yeah, when you actually listen to the kids and family, that's not what they're saying. Like, if you really can sit down with the kid, they're saying things like, "This it's not fun. I don't enjoy it. It's stressful. The coach tells me, I'm not taking myself seriously if I'm not trying to be in the group that trains 6 days a week, even though they provide the group that trains, 3 or 4 days a week at that age. Some of them do. The kids, if you can really sit them down, they're saying things like, it takes up too much of my time. Where am I going to fit all this homework in? I got to travel to these meets. My parents can't take me. I'm literally having to drive myself to these 2-day meets or carpool with another family. And I feel like kind of out of place here in this ecosystem. Like we've definitely heard this from kids like that.
Yeah, and it's interesting coming back to this topic now because in one of our first episodes we talked about the importance of parents having these conversations with their kids in the car after practice, right?
Hmm.
Like how can you proactively get ahead of these and ask your kids the right questions so you can make changes if they are saying these things early on, and then you will know what to do or how to combat those to hopefully help them enjoy the sport more. But right here, everything that you've said tells us something very important.
Yeah.
It's not a motivation problem. This is an experience problem,
Right.
straight up.
Right. If you're listening and you're a coach or a parent that had a kid that go through this, or you're a swimmer themselves that went through this, tell me if this sounds familiar. You're about 13 or 14 years old. You're not opting out from lack of effort. Your body is telling you, hey, warning, warning, this environment is getting overwhelming. I have AP classes, I have honors classes. I'm being encouraged/forced to take more of those. I have coaches for my sports telling me you have to be all in on this sport and I got to choose. And it's not a lack of effort thing. It's just the opposite. It's my body alarm is going off and it's saying, warning, over the sense of overload is occurring here. And I have to start making these adult like decisions for myself at age 13 or 14 so that I don't get overloaded with school, so that I don't get overloaded with athletics. I mean, it's a real thing. And everyone's jockeying, everyone being school, all the sports you're playing, maybe your parents, maybe music that you're doing, you have all of these things that are jockeying for position for your time. And no one knows if you're getting overloaded except for you. And if you don't have those skills to communicate with those adults around you, at some point it just kind of all falls over and breaks. It's like my warning light went off for too long. I'm done. I gotta cut 90% of these things out because I didn't get provided the tools to manage this. No one equipped me for how to take all of the life things and manage it because everyone just told me you need to focus and study and work harder and swim faster and do all of these things. And now I'm at a breaking point.
Yeah, and man, this age range for kids is so important. Like there's such a massive transition from 9 to 13 years old. I mean, you've got these kids that are growing quick, they're getting tall, they're getting stronger, and they're becoming more socially aware. They care more about how they perform, where swimming could be super fun and enjoyable between the ages of 6 and 9 or 6 and 10. It can be enjoyable forever. But when these kids are first getting into the sport, it should be all about
Mm.
fun. But at this age, they are starting to become more
Yeah.
aware about how they
Yeah.
perform
They
in their
want to
times.
get better.
They start, yeah, and they start comparing themselves with
Uh,
others. That's a big one. And they are definitely more sensitive to failure and
a
embarrassment.
hun-
And that's why, that's that is something that happens all the time in the sport of swimming. I mean, you got these kids that are growing. They're, going to these meets. They're wearing these suits in front of 1,000 people. It's just it's crazy for these kids and the transition that they're having at this
Yeah,
time.
it's a real thing, and I like what you said. Maybe a addressed issue that 9 to 12 to 13, especially for girls, is they're comparing themselves to the performance of others in the pool. They're more sensitive to that achievement or that perceived failure, that embarrassment. Their bodies are changing, and they're literally standing in front of hundreds of people in these suits performing. And that all adds up really, really fast. 9 or 10 or 11-year-old girl or boy that was blissfully unaware of all of that pressure at 9, 10, and 11 years old. At 12, 13, and 14 years old, it shifts overnight. All of a sudden they realize, like, man, I'm sitting here performing in front of all these parents and my teammates and my coaches, and I haven't gone a best time in 6 months. And that switch, it's it's extreme. It can be extreme for a lot of these kids.
Yeah, I mean, especially when these meets are the way they are, it's just it's such a harsh environment to get put into at that age, I think. And this is where swimming often unintentionally works against them. You know, the meets are getting
Mhm.
longer, training is also getting more intense, feedback unfortunately gets slower, pressure increases, all of those things are starting to build up in these groups. And that combination hits right when kids are becoming more emotionally aware.
Yeah, yeah. Now you say feedback gets slower. It does, especially because when you fall in the water when you're 7, you pretty much get faster every time you hit the water. And then that gradually slows down, and so that feedback cycle of improvement naturally, not in a bad way, naturally slows down because when you're 12, you can't just go a best time every time you decide to, every time you hit the water. And that is a big shift because when you're 12, you're going, "Well, 2 years ago, I was getting faster all the time." If someone's not explaining that to you, if someone's not encouraging you by saying that's a normal that's a normal part of getting better. The part where your times aren't getting faster, that's a normal part of getting better now that you're 12 and 13 years old. And that's a good aha moment that I don't think enough summers are coached through.
Yeah, I think you're totally right there. And then I think all of that is super important to mention, but let's dive into the meet experience. When we talk about the swimming experience is driving this number,
Mhm.
let's dive into that. So what we're seeing, one of the most consistent patterns is kids aren't necessarily quitting because of practice. You certainly have that. You have the kids that jump to 6 days a week and they're like, "Man, this is for the birds. I can't handle this. It's too much." That's fine.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times when they first transition, they're quitting because of the swim meets, the long swim meets, and the fact that these swim meets aren't happening enough.
Yeah.
Swim meets should be fun and enjoyable, but if they're 3 days long and they happen maybe 3 or 4 times a year, that's not fun.
Yeah, it's kind of the straw on the camel's back that breaks it, where you take this step in the sport and your other sports too. So you got, let's say, soccer, and the soccer experience, the soccer facility is 15 minutes away from the house, and the game is on Saturday morning, and everyone brings their lawn chair, and it's a beautiful day on the grass there on the field, and you get to play, and an hour later it's over and you're celebrating with your teammates at the pizza parlor. And that's just not the case for swimming. And unless you're in a major metro area and you're fortunate to have that aquatic center like down the street, you're driving to the venue. And a lot of times that venue is hours away. And it's just that game of comparison across your sport experience from various sports to others is fair. And you're wondering, why are we so even some people, Hayes, that I grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina, we got great facilities here in Raleigh. And even still, we're sitting there at 10 years old wondering, why are we driving to Goldsboro, North Carolina to swim at the YMCA down here that's an hour and 20 minutes away for a 2-day meet and having to figure out whether we're going to get a hotel or not, or just drive back and forth all weekend. And then meanwhile,
Yeah.
like, or we could just go play West Raleigh baseball and have a lot of fun 10 minutes from the house. And it's 6 innings and it's over in an hour and 15 minutes. And it's again, you said that it's not practice that drives kids away because they like the training. And oftentimes the coaches are doing a really good job of that. It's not that something is necessarily wrong with a lot of that approach. It's that when you add in the meet experience, it's like asking, it goes from an in house experience to travel ball all of a sudden. It's not really, oh, we're going to do competition along with this like you would with another sport. What does that mean? Oh, we're going to play a game. We're going to scrimmage on Saturday here at the facility. It's, oh, we're going to go drive to Charlotte almost 3 hours away and you got to stay in a hotel and warm up is at 6 a.m. and you better be on time or you don't care about what you're doing. That's the difference.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's so interesting thinking also from a parent's perspective. When the kids are in this 9 to 13 age group, you're hoping you're hoping that they're multi-sport athletes, right?
Mhm.
So
I
what
would
they've
be.
played,
I am, yeah.
yeah, exactly. Soccer, baseball, basketball, volleyball, whatever it may be, right? And then when the kids decide to go into this next group of swimming, this is where the meets get really hard for the parents.
Mhm.
They're going from, like you mentioned, these hour soccer games, hour basketball games. They see the scoreboard, they know what's happening too. Hey, team, we're going to Goldsboro, North Carolina for a 3-day swim meet. You know, it's going to be an hour and a half drive, whatever it may be. Your kids are probably going to race every hour, maybe. And then we're going to wait around for a long time. And then they might get disqualified without explanation to you guys. And then you guys won't even get to see the immediate
Right,
results.
right.
So it's just such a harsh difference. Yes, for the kids, but really for the
Yeah,
parents.
and that's so true. Here's a good story. This is like good intentions colliding with bad practices, okay? I had a great, before I was 13, before I was 14 or 15, like high school years, had a really good head coach for our YMCA team. All right, and she was really focused on sportsmanship, character, camaraderie with the team. It was I was at the perfect age to have those things instilled. And going back to the Goldsboro example, we went to lots of meets down at the Goldsboro YMCA. And one of the rules on the team was that you cheer for your teammates on the side of the pool. Like we're practicing cheering for our teammates. Great principle and great thing to teach the kids. And two, you don't leave the meet until everyone on the team is done. Okay. This is a solid concept and the spirit of this is very good. All right. Now bear with me. When the meet is 4 hours long and I'm done halfway through the meet, I'm not on the relay at the end. My events are I already swam 3 events in the first half of the meet. Okay. And now I'm being told in order to be a good teammate, you have to stay and cheer for everybody for the next 2 hours. Well, the spirit of that concept is right, but the practicality, the tools available, the implementation is what's driving those parents away because that experience, like you said, the parents are going to really struggle to wrap their minds around this. Like, we're being made to feel like we're bad teammates and bad parents and we're not good team members if we don't sit around and cheer for 2 more hours, but we're done. This is not
Yeah.
fair. And you have this collision. And I think it's maybe principles that want to be put into practice that we're searching for the right venue to do it. And just that goes back to us needing to have better swim meets, more efficient, in-house, faster, etcetera.
Yeah. And perfect segue. I mean, this connects to another big issue, which is the practice to play ratio, you know?
Mhm.
And so, like we've talked about in the past, you're seeing these other sports that are practicing once or twice a week, and then they're competing every weekend.
Right,
So,
right.
the practice to play ratio is super important.
Yep, yep. Yeah, it's like in most sports, kids practice a little and they play a lot, and then what in swimming, Hayes? It's the opposite.
Yeah, it often flips completely 180. So kids practice a lot. I mean, 6 days a week, that's normal, to maybe play once a quarter. I think that's safe to say that you might have a meet once a quarter. You would hope so, at
Yeah,
least. And racing is obviously the play part of swimming
yeah,
for all of you guys listening.
we still have some teams coming to us letting us know that they run meets every quarter, and they say that thinking that they're being innovative, and that's a lot, that's a high frequency, and it's not. It's not. This feedback cycle for a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old of every 12 weeks getting to compete or having access to a
Yeah.
simple in-house meet every 12. Like, again, go back to soccer or basketball. They're competing, they're playing every single week. So
Yeah.
when
I
that's
mean, at
right,
these ages,
go ahead.
yeah, I was just going to say at these ages, kids just want to feel like they're actually doing the sport,
Yeah.
not just training for it. I mean, it's all that they've been used to in these other sports. And if the practice to play ratio is off, kids will
Yeah.
disconnect. They're like, what are we doing all week? When do we get to race? So it really needs to be talked about and revised because these kids need to play swimming.
Yeah. These are good kids that show up on time. that as they get older, they're driving themselves to the pool. They're, they're carpooling with other kids that go to their high school, or the high school kids are picking up their younger siblings at middle school to take them to practice. Like these are kids that want to show up on time, that want to improve, that want to get better, that want to encourage each other. And they just deserve a venue and a format and an environment that's play based, that just continues to spur that on.
Yeah. So I hope, Charlie, that we can help a lot of these teams figure out how to get the practice to play ratio right, which I think we're about to do. And I'm really excited about it. But another shift that happens around this age is this performance
Mhm.
focus. You've got the times, you've got the rankings, the standards, the futures, all of these things. Remember, like back in the day when we
Yeah.
were kids, it was like, remember top 16?
Yeah.
Top 16 was the thing, right? And I remember as soon as I could understand what it
Yep.
was, I was ready to try and understand it and get into that top
This is
16.
how we know we're old. Top 16, you're waiting for that Swimming World magazine to show up at your house so you can flip to the back, go to, what was it, 9, 10, 11, 12 boys and
Yeah.
see, 200 freestyle or 100 free or 500 like, "Oh, yeah, I made it. I'm in there." We live for that, and that's cool, and we want that. We want that gamified experience for sure, no doubt about it. If that's the only sign of improvement, progression, or standard of being enjoyment of the sport, when those kids are toweling off after practice, if they don't have anything else to talk about, all of a sudden it's, well, are did you break the record? Are you top 16? And there's no gamified experience that is just play centric. Like, what did we do? How was the racing that we did today? Well, we didn't race. We just trained all day and stared at a black line. Okay. Well, again, for a lot of the stalwarts of the sport, they're ready to excel. The 400,000 swimmers in USA Swimming, most of them are demonstrating this. They're time and achievement standard and qualification oriented, and that's good. But we gotta think about everything underneath that. There's probably 20 kids that should be competing underneath that for every one of those kids. And
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have the kids that are ready for that,
yeah,
right? But what about the kids that aren't? That I feel like there are kids that are talented and fast that pick up the sport very quickly and they get excited about that. But then there are most of the kids that feel like they might fall way short of even thinking that they can be part of this top 16
right,
list, right?
right. Because if you scale it back, the thing that we're taught in the sport, as even as a young swimmer, is personal improvement. And we've kind of turned that into an idol, because it's true that that's a good marker. That may be the best marker. No, achievement in the sport is that did you get better? Did you get improved? Do you have a time improvement? And that's good. But
Yeah.
it's gotten morphed into this thing where I'm going to show up at these meets, and if I don't get better, this is the only metric that I have. If I don't get better, if I can't even be better than what I've already done, then that's really deflating. And if I go to 3 meets, and by the way, going to 3 meets, it takes months and months and months to just go to 3 meets. So flash forward 9 months later, I've been to 3 meets, and in those 3 meets, I still haven't gone a personal best. Now I'm really deflated. Now I'm really down in the dumps. So I think we've turned personal best and personal achievement in the sport into a kind of an idol, because we don't have anything play centric underneath it to say that the objective this week and every week is to race, is to enjoy the racing. You're going to get better because you're just going to thrive and live in that environment of racing. Right now, we're going to hold our breath. We're going to compete once every 3 months or once every 6 weeks, and if you don't go a personal best, then you better work harder. You better swim faster, mister, and then you can try again, but not next week. You got to wait 6 weeks for the next meet. And the next meet is a 2 hour drive away. But we're going to put all these eggs in this one basket. And after 3 meets of doing that and not improving, the average swimmer is just like, this, man, I'm really busting my hump here. And this is really deflating. I don't really know how to where do I go from here? Hey, where do
Yeah,
I
I mean,
go from here?
you have those kids. I mean, I remember vividly when I was a kid, and you have the kids your same age, and they hit puberty early, and they're so fast, they're top of the list everywhere. And then you have this group, and maybe they're even a bully a little bit, like that happens a lot on swim teams when you have these fast kids that you'd hope that the not as fast kids look up
Hmm.
to. But those fast kids might even bully them around a little bit, which happened at my club. It happened at the club down the street. But when you have this group under those kids that constantly feel like they're falling short,
Right.
even when they're improving, those kids are actually improving, but they feel like they're falling short because of something
Yeah.
else. They might stop feeling successful, which stinks.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. That's it. So, I mean, what actually works here? Let's talk about the data and what we're going to do here that point to the same thing. And that is kids stay in the sport when they race often. Now, again, often weekly, race weekly, just like every other sport. We're going to play every week in the sport. Otherwise, it's not a sport. So kids stay in with race weekly, understand what is happening, see improvement quickly, which can only be by doing it every week, and feel supported at these meets. And when they do that, there's this repeatable, predictable process. Now we're on a weekly cadence. Now we're feeling confident, right? What do you think?
Yeah. So we're talking shorter
Uh
meets,
huh.
more frequent
That's
racing,
right.
immediate
Yep.
feedback, clear communication, and low pressure environments. You do not have to travel hours to go to a swim meet. These are not soft ideas. They will be and can be retention drivers for your
Yeah,
program.
I mean, what we're saying, and we'll get to this down the road this year, is you as a program, if you do this stuff, you're going to generate more revenue. You're going to make more money.
Maybe we should talk about that next
Yeah,
week.
if you have a program that runs as a business here, gonna make more money. We have developed a platform to show you how. But
Yeah. And so I mean, this is where exactly development meets become incredibly
yeah,
important. And we did talk about this last
right.
week, right? But we cannot stress this enough. This is exactly where the development meets, where development programs that you have or have not developed yet become very important for your
I mean,
program.
it really is the age 6 to 12 is the with the development meets. It is the make or break product experience that your team delivers or does not deliver to improve the swimmer, to improve the experience for the families, and to improve and grow your program.
Yeah, because when these development meets are short and quick and focused and skill based, right? Kids get more reps and more confidence. They understand what success looks like. They'll see progress in the skill that they practice that week, right to the meet that
Yeah,
week. Wow. And then they will want to come back because they'll want to do it again and check this other skill, check this other meet off the list and feel that immediate success because that's super important at this
yeah.
age.
Hey, let me ask you a question. Here's what we see. Why do most why do a lot of teams feel like you can't have a real swim meet unless you have multiple teams there? Why is a scrimmage, why is an inter squad meet treated like a less than? It's not a real meet. Why do you have to have more than one team to compete when your team alone has now I'm just being rhetorical. Why can't a meet with just one team be a real swim meet?
Well, it can. I mean, I think it goes back to how these meets have been set and the standard that's been set from when swim meets have been created, right? Like there are typically more than one team in the area. So I know that a lot of teams with young swimmers will start with competing with other teams in the
Yeah,
area. But the fact that they've totally lost sight of getting up individually and racing is not competing is bogus.
yeah,
Like you could run a swim meet, Charlie, with six
right.
swimmers if you wanted
There you
to.
go. Yeah, but it always turns into this thing where the 3 coaches in town, sit around at lunch and they're like, "All right, well, we're gonna have a fun meet." Yeah, and they come up with these cool ideas, but the frequency of them is like, "Well, we're gonna do that 6 weeks from now." Well, we did it at our pool last time, so now we'll come do it at your pool, but that's going to be in the spring. And it's like, how have we not arrived at executing a business model, irrespective of what other programs are doing in the area, and creating just a really delightful product every week that demonstrates to the parents, wow, this sport is worth its benefits. This is worth investing in, and I can see this every week. It's we I think if I'm encouraging coaches or coach-owned programs or facilities that have teams out there, you have what it takes internally to do all of this every week. And it would be a better product for the swimmers, it would be a better product for the families, and you would generate more money. It's a it's a little bit of a no-brainer.
Yeah. I mean, this is exactly what we want to help with. And I think, we've talked about this in multiple episodes, but swimmingly can be an awesome solution for development programs, for teams that want this, and for teams that want to generate more revenue.
Yeah.
I mean, I think people are losing sight of that. I don't know if they don't have the creativity or if some people are just not willing to put the effort in to do it, but it really can be super
Well,
simple.
on that note, I think it's that, we exist because I think it's the problem is operational, not philosophical. There's always great ideas that coaches have when they get together, but the tools and the implementation plan to pull it all together is what's key. You have to have the practical stuff. We know shorter swim meets and more frequent racing, like you said, and better tools is part of it. But that coach really needs that business manager, that business mind to supplement them on the pool deck. Often talk about the wet side and the dry side of the sport. That role is real because that's the person that can run the business. It's not that the coach is incapable of doing that. It's that they already have a job. They're doing the instruction in the water. When we've seen on occasion a coach rise to that sort of CEO or director level where they're really not on the pool deck coaching every day anymore and they're running the business. Now we're freed up to really do this stuff. But the the number of times that happens is very rare. And it just goes back to these aren't philosophical problems, they're operational. You're hamstrung by the resources or lack thereof for most programs.
Yeah. I mean, looking back, I would have absolutely loved to have set up a mini meet environment, even if it was just replacing a Saturday morning practice and getting up and being timed and practicing starts and races that I don't get to actually play as much as I'd want to.
Yeah.
I mean, there was an instance, Charlie. It was like one of my first meets. I swam for Lakeside in Louisville, Kentucky, and I think I was 9 or 10, maybe. I was definitely in that age group. But we went to the big state meet.
Mhm.
In Tennessee, it's called Southeasterns, and I think in North Carolina, it's called state,
Yeah,
right?
age group champs, yeah.
Age group champs, yeah. So we went to state and at the big pool at UK. I'd never raced in a pool this big. It was like the coolest thing. But I got up there and I got DQ'd 4 times that meet.
Man,
Four
hey,
times because I I wasn't used to that environment. I really wasn't.
yeah,
I was nervous. I just I couldn't understand the environment at all. Like it was the biggest meet I'd been to at that point in my swimming career. And I had just gotten so nervous and I was shaken up because I hadn't practiced enough these starts. Two or three of them were false starts because I was so
mhm,
nervous. And then another one was something else. But the fact of the matter is that I wasn't able to play enough to get myself ready for that
yeah.
situation. And looking back on it, I wish we would have practiced all the time or played all the time.
Yeah, in fact, this speaks to a point that you made me think of just now, and if you look at the elite athletes, this is a lesson from elite athletes that really can be applied at the grassroots level, I think. If you look at the elite athletes, top 150 in the world, top 20 in the world, oftentimes when they make that jump to the next level, your first major international meet, your first Olympics, your first, let's go down a little bit, your first senior national swim meet. Oftentimes, if you look on average across the board, performance between being there for the first time and the performance that you did to get there is usually about the same. Meaning that there's no, you don't put all this effort in to then jump to the next level and then all of a sudden get even faster. You're performing about the same. Sometimes a lot of people see that performance go back down in that one swim or there's a couple of swims at that next level. And the reason is simple. It's what you just said. When you were 9 years old and you swam at a university aquatic center, a natatorium for the first time, everything changed and your performance went down. But that's not bad. That's normal. That's natural. That's a good thing. And so teaching kids this in house, I think, helping them understand that is critical, number one, even at the grassroots level, even at the development level. But the only way you can teach them to practice jumping to that next level is to practice competing in-house every week. Setting the
That's right.
stage and setting that tone for, man, one day it's not going to be our little bubbled pool here with 6 lanes. It's going to be this big natatorium across town. And one day from there, it's Stanford, it's going to be big outside, 2 8-lane 50-meter pools. You've never seen anything
Yeah,
like it. And we're not practicing and teaching kids how to emotionally grow with those environments because we're not teaching them to compete every week in house and as best as we can create those environments.
that's right. Yeah. I mean, so the big takeaway, I would say, the big takeaway here is that kids are not quitting because the sport of swimming is too hard.
Yeah, yeah. Something has to give at that age, and a lot of times the experience just stops working for them. They have to choose.
Exactly. And swimming does not lose kids at 13. They're actually losing these kids at 9, at
Mhm.
10, 11, and then they might just happen to see the result at 13.
Yeah, they hold on as long as they can, and then
They
you see
do.
them
Yeah.
go. When the experience works earlier, and earlier is when they start 6, 7, 8 years old, kids are staying past 13. And when it doesn't, they hold on, but you see them disappear by that 12, 13 age.
Yeah. So Charlie, let's get some of these teams competing more often, playing more often. We need to change the standard here, I think.
Yeah, we've got a program for it. It's our full-time gig, isn't it? That's what we do every day.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, if you coach or lead or support a program or swimmers in this age range, take a hard look, a really hard look at the experience you are creating for them. Is it building confidence or is it creating pressure?
Yeah, exactly. If you want to implement a curriculum that's going to keep kids in the sport longer and give you more revenue margin every week, every month, you can make that assistant coach higher. So you can move into that, those extra lanes, run a sample meet with Swimmingly. We'd love to show you our curriculum and how we can help you do that.
Yep. And this is definitely what we care about most. We sit here and talk every Friday, Charlie and I, because keeping kids in swimming is very important to us. Increasing participation is part of our mission because at the end of the day, the goal is not about finding the fastest 10-year-old. It's about increasing the base of the sport and getting more swimmers into our sport and having fun doing it.
Yeah, that's right. And at the end of the day, Hayes and I are, we're in our 30s at this point, and we are here because we're building a platform for the sport, not so that we can then apply it to other sports. We care about swimming. We care about going deep in this vertical to keep swimmers in longer, to attract more swimmers that otherwise wouldn't have been in the sport in the first place. And that is what drives the mission of Swimmingly. So we'll see you next time. We appreciate it. Keep it going, Swimmingly. We'll see you.